According to one British study, most people these days are only happy to wait 16 seconds for a web page to load, 25 seconds for a traffic light to change, and around 3 days for an exciting parcel to arrive in the mail. But how long are we willing to wait for our cherished dreams and personal goals to fall into place? I'm Kim Forrester. You're listening to the Eudaemonia podcast, and today we're going to explore the power of patience.
Welcome to Eudaemonia, the podcast that is all about flourishing. Plug in, relax, and get ready for the goodness as we explore the traits and practices that can help you thrive in life. With your host, Kim Forrester.
Ryan Stanley is a life purpose, business and internal corporate coach and a lifelong entrepreneur. He's globally recognised for his ability to connect with those who are willing to make significant changes in their personal and professional lives so they can end up being the best versions of themselves. Ryan is the author of Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, which he describes as a first aid kit for the emotional bumps, scrapes and bruises of life. It's my absolute pleasure to be chatting with Ryan today to explore the importance of patience and to learn why nurturing a sense of serenity is vital for personal growth and well-being. Ryan Stanley, welcome to the Eudaemonia podcast. Thanks for being here today.
Kim, it is truly my honor. Super excited, been looking forward to it all morning long.
Love that so much. Now, Ryan, in your delightful little book, you share teachings about patience, presence, and joy. And patience comes first, and I did wonder if there was a reason for that. Why have you placed patience at the beginning of your book? In your view, is patience a key concept that perhaps unlocks other aspects of well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So yes, is the short answer to the second part of your question. The first part is, so when we look at patience, we look at presence, we look at joy. I believe that patience is one thing that whether it comes from having patience or not having enough patience, it's something that everybody can appreciate. And, as I'm writing a book for the world, right, I wrote it for myself as much as I did for the rest of the world. But when looking at something that everybody can access and hopefully learn from and glean from, I think everybody can at some point say, I'm not patient enough, or I haven't been patient recently, or I know what it's like to be impatient, or I know someone who is impatient. When you start getting into presence, sometimes people would push that off as maybe like a swami, like a guru, I have to be a monk to know what presence is and to be present. And so patience, I figured, was a place that everybody can start and think about what it's like to be patient or impatient for that matter.
Oh, that's great. So you connected with the people somewhere where you knew they would understand. And you're right. We all understand what it is to be impatient. We all know people who are particularly patient. And I must say, I look up to those people quite personally.
Right.
You teach that patience is a choice.
Absolutely.
So what are we choosing when we choose not to be patient, right? So when we choose to be impatient, what emotions or experiences are we inviting into our life in that moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. So really, sometimes the challenge is we're not necessarily making a choice not to be patient. And I think that is the biggest challenge in general. So to your question, it's like when we're making a choice not to be patient, typically it's a reaction. And so that reaction is really coming from a place of lack of time, lack of presence. So when you are choosing not to be patient, you are choosing not to trust in the outcome. You are choosing not to trust in life itself as something that can sustain and really that goes much deeper, but as something that cannot sustain and take care of you. But in the grand scheme of things, patience is recognizing that there is only now and to not worry about the future. And by the way, that doesn't mean sit on your hands and do nothing and just do nothing all day long. Quite the opposite. It's more about deciding who you want to be while you're waiting for life to unfold. And instead of feeling overwhelmed or pressure or stress, you instead step into gratitude for the now and recognizing that everything will unfold exactly as it's supposed to. And my job is to be the best version of myself in the meantime. And to be honest with you, in most cases, when you're not being patient, you're also choosing not to be happy, right? In some level, again, going back to that place of lack, you're choosing to be a person who does not have enough.
Absolutely. I have spent my life being a doer, Ryan. So
Yeah.
I know what it is to be busy and to be doing. And then for the last 21 years, that's sort of been exacerbated by being a busy mum.
Of course.
So I know what it is to be impatient. I know what it is to lose my nut at someone because they're going slow in front of me in the fast lane, right? Get
Absolutely.
out of my way. And for me, as you're speaking there, I could see that for me, impatience is definitely anger, which is quickly followed by shame because that is not the kind of person that I want to be.
Yeah.
It's interesting there that you were talking about, running out of time. It is something that most people on this planet absolutely can connect with and understand. And you're actually careful to explain that we are the creators of our life. So why do you feel if we are able to create our life in all sorts of degrees, why do we struggle with creating the timing of our lives? If we're in charge of our life direction, why are we not in charge of our life timing, Ryan?
Yeah, it's a great question as well, because I think we have expectations, especially in 2020, where we're able to get everything so quickly, right? I can get an email from somebody on the other side of the world in 2 seconds. Whereas even 30 years ago, you had to wait many days to get any correspondence from someone. I mean, obviously there was telephone, but now we get so much information so quickly that people are just used to being, even whether it be Amazon, whether it be just getting information, Google on their phone, you could be out, out in the woods somewhere. If you have a question about something, you just pick up something in your pocket to get information. So there is a sense of needing and wanting everything now. But I think the challenge, and I love the example that you brought up about being stuck in traffic or having somebody go slow in front of you. That was one of my first big aha moments came from being stuck in traffic in regards to patience, where I was late for an important event in New York City. And there was somebody who I was excited to meet, but it was really important for me to be there. And there was just, I'd gotten, again, to your point, being a dad, I think there were some things that slowed me up at home. And then I just ended up stuck in traffic due to construction or something. And I found myself just being so stressed and so overwhelmed. And then I finally I just stopped for a moment and I said, what's the worst case scenario, right? I'm sitting here it's going to take me, let's say 45 more minutes to get to New York City at this point. I could spend the next 45 minutes being angry and stressed and overwhelmed, or I could be here and recognize the gift of life and listen to some music or think thoughts or how do I want the rest of the night to go? And the other point came when I realized that there's been many times where I've been late for a meeting or a gathering or something. And when I got there, it didn't make a difference. I remembered being stressed the whole way there, getting there, and maybe the person who I was going to meet was late as well, or the rest of the night went off to be an amazing night. And so therefore, I spent all this time, stress and overwhelm and anger at something that didn't even serve my life.
If we are trying to manifest a huge dream, if we're working towards a goal, I
Yeah,
think there is this sense that we should be able to. If we are, well, actually, it's more along the lines of that if we're doing things right, we should be able to control the absolute timing. It's almost like if we write a 2-year plan or a 5-year plan, there is some voice inside our head that is saying, you are in control of that timing, right?
right.
If you are doing everything right, then everything will fall into place exactly the dates that you think they're going to happen on the calendar. What's going on there, Ryan? And how can we imbue a better sense of patience into the pace of life?
Yeah, so the combination there is what's important, right? So I mean, I certainly believe it's important to set goals, set specific timing goals as well. The important part, though, is when they don't come to fruition, instead of being angry or frustrated or disappointed, instead be grateful for the outcome, right, that you want to occur. Look for the lessons that have occurred over the time. And again, specifically back to that space where let's just say I wanted something, just to make it shorter, I wanted something to happen by next Tuesday. And next Tuesday, and I'm working towards it every single day. I'm doing what I believe to be all the right things. A lot of the time, many people out there will spend the next 7 days thinking about how it's not going to happen, even though I'm working hard and being stressed that it's not going to happen in time. So they're actually being impatient the whole time anyway. And then from a quantum physics, perspective, that's exactly what you're creating, more reasons to be impatient, as opposed to spending those 7 days, to your point, still doing the work, still showing up on purpose, getting the activity done that will bring it to next Tuesday with, instead of being worried that it's not going to happen, but the opposite of gratitude for it unfolding when and how it's supposed to. And then when you get to that Tuesday, in the case that it doesn't happen, know that I've done my part as a co-creator in life. I've done my part by showing up as often as possible, intentionally, with purpose, with gratitude, and allow life to unfold the way it's supposed to. Because sometimes, and clearly this often comes up in hindsight, but had things happen exactly the way we wanted them to on the day that we wanted to, it wouldn't have turned out for our best.
Mm.
And so when we start stepping into gratitude for life itself and our ability to create whatever outcome we want, and then let go of the timing. I mean, it's important to know what we want to do, but allow the timing to unfold the way it's actually supposed to.
I like that. I have this saying that we're in charge of our lives, but we're never in control. And I think that's kind of what you're saying there. We can set a goal, set a timing for sure, but understand that you are not necessarily in control of all of the elements, but you're definitely in charge of how you go through your life as you work towards that timing and that goal.
Absolutely. And who you want to be in every single moment up until then.
Because there is only now, Ryan.
100%.
Let's go back to, you were just talking about there about this modern world where everything is at our fingertips whenever we want it. And I think it's become quite self-evident that we are an incredibly entitled generation when it comes to the timing and instantaneous delivery of things that we want in life. Do you feel that we have lost a connection with patience that perhaps our grandparents enjoyed? And if so, do you feel it's possible to reclaim a sense of patience in this hyper immediate society?
So I would say yes, yes, and yes.
Mm.
I think in general, to your point, we are in an immediate society and people do want stuff now. And I think we have lost, even just like, I don't know how many people look forward to going to their mailbox now, but when we talk about our grandparents, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to possibly get some correspondence from a friend I haven't talked to in a while. Now, you're just getting, you can get that whenever you want on the phone. You're getting bombarded by junk in the mail. And I think there was a different way. I think older generations or generations past did spend more time in nature, spend more time looking around at the world around them, because that was more of what they had. It was what was right in front of them right now. And they weren't necessarily, getting everything they needed, everything they wanted immediately. And I should say, to the third part of your question, I feel like I'm a perfect example intentionally of what you just asked. Like, is it possibility for us to become more aware of the value of patience and seek it out? And I think more and more people are. And that was also my intention with the book, make people aware that they have the ability, right? To your point of bringing up that we are all creators. We're always creating something. And so it really just becomes about being curious and asking yourself, what type of a human being am I creating today? Am I creating a person who's impatient, or am I creating a person who's patient? And people will say, well, maybe I'm being impatient, but that's because this happened and that person, and this person said they were going to do this. And all of a sudden they're blaming everything that is happening outside of them. I guess it's important to be aware of what's happening outside of you, but what's more important to be aware of what's happening inside of you. Doesn't matter what's going on outside of you. You can still choose to create a person who's being patient, and be curious as to how would a person who's being patient behave in this moment. And when you start asking yourself questions like that, what would it like to feel patience right now? You are, in a sense, becoming patient in the moment, because you're taking your mind off the stress or anxiety of whatever is not happening for you, and instead just being curious as to what you can create from within.
That word choice, it came up again, and it feels so empowering. It feels so empowering to conceive of this idea that we can actually choose to be more patient. We can choose to let go of the timing, be joyful and present in the moment, and allow everything to unfold as it will.
Yeah. And one of the biggest challenges, and this is just human nature from my experience, is that we believe that we're working towards getting something to be happy. Right. So we're striving, whether it be working, like you said, we're being a doer, perhaps. We're working extra hard. We're doing all things in the sense that, well, when I finish this, I'll either have enough money, or I'll be in the relationship that I want, or I'll have the career that I want, or whatever. We're working towards something so that I can one day be happy, or so I can one day retire, or I can one day get to whatever this is. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. And that is a struggle. It is a chase. You're chasing happiness. You're chasing what you want. And you feel like, I have to do all this stuff to get that. And it is a constant effort. And that's why people feel impatient, because it's not coming as soon as they want it to. And they feel like it's coming from the outside world, and they have to chase it, and they chase it, and they chase it. Now, if you reverse engineer that, and you say, well, in the end, I really just want to be happy, and that's what I'm chasing. And you decide to recognize, okay, right now I have the choice, going back to your point about choosing. If I want to be happy right now, I want to sit and think about, how would a happy person behave? How would a patient person behave? And I want to create that for the moment. And I start to build that habit of choosing who I want to be in every given moment. Because as you said earlier, there's only now anyway. So who do I want to be right now? And when we start to do that and step into it, you are no longer chasing the outcome. You are creating the outcome in the moment. And then the rest of the things that come along with that happiness tend to come to you instead of you having to chase them.
I love that. And it reminds me of something that you wrote in your book, actually. You wrote that when we are no longer in a hurry, we no longer feel the pressure of the unknown. Now, what on earth do you mean by that?
Yeah. So totally. So when we're not in a hurry, it's like all of a sudden when we're feeling impatient, we're feeling pressure. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I know I wanted it to happen yesterday. And so you're disappointed, you're frustrated, you're upset because life is not happening exactly as you wanted to. And so that's the unknown. So I don't know when it's going to occur. I don't know when I'm going to feel better. I don't feel like all these different things. And so that's the unknown. But when we accept the unknown as something that is happening for us, and we accept the fact that we can decide who we want to be in the moment, no matter what is the unknown is. We don't feel pressure by it to be something else. We can instead recognize that right now there is gravity, there is sunlight, there is oxygen, just so that I can exist today. So who do I
Mm.
want to be when I wake up in the morning and recognize those things are here so that I can exist today? Who do I want to be in that? Do I want to spend the next 16 to 18 hours stressed or overwhelmed because I'm not where I want to be? Or do I want to recognize that this is literally a gift and there'll never be another day like it?
Ryan, when does patience become procrastination or avoidance? How can we tell if we're using patience as an excuse for non-action or as a justification, perhaps, for clinging on to something that is not meant for us?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So I think that, and I'm thinking out loud here, um, procrastination comes from a sense that, like, it's not like I'm just going to sit down and watch 16 hours of television, right? So procrastination comes when you choose to do other things that are not necessarily serving your purpose or your action or the outcome that you want. Being patient is recognizing that I'm still going to work and I'm still going to do what needs to be done. It is my responsibility to take action towards the direction of what I want to occur. But I'm not angry that it's not happening the day that I want it to occur or the moment that I want to occur. Or I'm not blaming somebody else for their behavior. I'm choosing to be who I want to be in the moment. So I think procrastination and avoidance is very different. I think you could probably rationalize your procrastination by calling it patience, but I don't think patience is necessarily procrastination. There are patient people who do not procrastinate.
Absolutely. I wonder if there is a way to discern the difference, though, because there are people, and I think maybe we've all done it in our lives at some stage, used, oh, I'm being patient as an excuse to actually just not get off our butt and go and
Right.
do the thing that, or, oh, no, I'm being patient instead of making those life changes that are really discomforting that need to be made in order to start a new journey or start a new phase of life. How can we tell the difference? And I'm going to ask you to think out loud again, maybe, but how can we tell when we're sitting in that sense of avoiding life's necessary actions? Oh, I'm not going to worry about leaving this toxic relationship or this toxic friendship. I'm just going to be patient and wait it out.
Yeah. That's avoidance, right? That's a difference between patience and that is rationalization. So that's the perfect example. And that's somebody who's not being honest with themselves as well, right? So it's one thing to say I'm being patient, but you can, if at the same time, is the situation that I'm in serving my purpose, serving what I'm being patient towards, right? If I say, well, I'm not going to get out of this toxic relationship because I'm being patient, it's going to get better. It's important to ask yourself a question like, well, how true is that? Or if you're in a
Mm.
job, and I think that's what I think you would allude to. It's like I'm working on when is it time to let something go instead of just sit and say, well, it'll happen eventually. I think really what it comes down to is, are you happy? And what I mean by that is if you're extremely unhappy in any relationship, there's a difference between being patient and working towards it, and especially if the other person is working towards it as well, and you guys are being very communicative and vocal about what's not working in your relationship and wanting to fix it and change, or if you're working for a company and you hate your job every day, well, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. Chances are it's not about being patient. It's just not going to get better, and it's time to make some changes.
Mm.
There's an opportunity to ask ourselves, am I happy every day? And I think that's probably a clear difference as I've kind of worked through this whole thing out loud. I think if you are unhappy, you're typically not being patient, right? In the sense that you're masking your unhappiness as patience. But when you're patient, you are here now, and you're excited for the outcome, and you know it's going to show up as it's supposed to, and you're not worried about anything. But if
Mm.
you're in a toxic relationship or in a career you don't like and you're just kind of waiting for it to get better, you're not happy. And I mean, there's things that you can do towards that. Obviously, one of them is leaving the relationship. But I think waiting something out that is not serving you on a day-to-day basis, you're just creating more of that. I think that most people who procrastinate know they're procrastinating or they're not always necessarily patient. Typically, they're going to be impatient about something else. I
Mm.
haven't come across too many people who are just kind of doing nothing and have told me that the reason they're doing nothing is because they're being patient. Most people who I find are doing nothing are blaming life. I didn't have enough of this growing up, or I didn't have enough of that, or I don't have a good enough job, or I'm not in a good enough thing, or all these reasons that life is happening to me. And those are the people who sit around and do nothing. I think there are also on the other side of the coin people who work so hard and are working 19 hours a day, but they're angry the whole time, and they're upset that life is not happening as fast as they want it to be, and so therefore they're not procrastinating at all, but they're also not being patient.
Let's talk about that word waiting. I think for many people, that's exactly what patience feels like. It feels like nothingness or a waste of precious time,
Yeah.
Ryan. Is there a better way for us to fill that in between time? And I think you may have touched on this anyway through the interview, but are there behaviors or attitudes that we can adopt that enable us to become more comfortable with waiting for something to roll into our lives, whether it be 2 minutes away or 2 years away?
Yeah. I think just in general, to get a clear understanding of what you want your life to look like, I highly recommend anybody who's listening to this, if you haven't already, make some time today to literally write down exactly what you want your life to look like in all areas of your life: physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, environmentally, everything around you. Choose what you want that to look like. Write it down. Write it down in the present tense. And I say this because once you do that, you have a clear North Star of who you want to be and where you want to go. The second thing I would do is say that out loud. Read it out loud every single morning and every night before you go to bed. Remind yourself of who you want to be. And the reason
Mm.
I say this in this place of patience is because if you know for a fact where you want to go, and you know for a fact exactly what it looks like, and you are reminding yourself and your subconscious of it every single day, multiple times, you don't necessarily need to wait on anything because you know you obviously at that point you will be taking action towards it. So
Mm.
if you're taking action towards it and you are creating gratitude, again, coming from a place of abundance instead of a place of lack, creating gratitude not only for that outcome, wherever it unfolds, but also for your ability to co-create that outcome. You're no longer spending time thinking about why it's not happening because you are creating it and you know that it is happening. And so you go from this place of why I'm waiting for life to happen for you or waiting for life to happen to you the way you're expecting it to, as opposed to know that you are co-creating it and the rest is happening for you.
That's cool. I love that whole idea of sort of bringing it back to envisioning how you want your life to be or how your life is what you're saying. Write it in the present tense. Because when you're in that space, you're not only patient, but there seems to be a sense of trust in the process, right? Trust in the way the universe, life, God, however you want to frame it,
Yeah.
trust in that process and how it's going to unfold. And sitting in the inevitability that what you want is going to come to you, right? Or you will get to where you want to be. That does seem a lot more comfortable than stressing out and getting angry and shameful.
Yeah, and because so many people spend so much of their time thinking about what they don't have and that it's not here yet. And that they,
Yeah,
as opposed to, I mean, I promise you, the people who are spending time excited about for what is coming into their life and know that they're creating it, they're not worried about it not happening. And whether I choose who I want to be and it takes a week or 10 years, if I know for a fact that it's going to unfold exactly as it's supposed to, I'm going to enjoy the process of being alive.
that's cool. We're not messing up our present moment with
Yeah,
this
be
with this
here now.
angst and stress. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask a couple of personal questions now because in your book you ask the reader to imagine what patience feels like. Tell me, Ryan, what does patience feel like to you?
Patience feels like freedom.
Wow.
I think it's the shortest possible answer I can come up with because it's a space where you are not chained by a disappointment. You're not chained by fear of the outcome not happening as it's supposed to. You're not, you are able to be free and to be here now and to choose your thoughts. So I would say patience feels like freedom.
The Eudaemonia podcast is all about flourishing. How has your life been enhanced? How have you started to flourish since you learned to become more patient?
I think as a parent, as a husband, as a sibling, as a friend, my life has improved because of patience. At any point, especially I think most importantly, as I'm thinking out loud in the space of parenthood, it's ironic that my favorite thing about life is being a parent, but it is also my greatest opportunity for patience. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they certainly I might have to tell them the same thing 18 times. It feels like sometimes in a day. And at the same time, I never really understood what unconditional love was until I became a parent. And so I know how much I love these human beings. And I'm very aware of my responsibility in being a guide and a light for them and setting an example for them in every single moment. So,
That's beautiful.
yeah. And so knowing that even whether I know they're listening, thinking, growing, learning from me or not, they are, right? And that every single moment, whether they're in the other room, anytime I walk into a room, whether I'm speaking directly to them or not, they are paying attention, they are learning, whether they know it or not. So when I get frustrated and I get stressed with them for behaving like a 7 and a 9-year-old would, it's funny, as adults, we expect our children to behave like adults in some capacity, and we get disappointed or impatient when they don't. And so it has been a constant lesson for me. So I think my life has flourished because I'm very diligent about being aware of how I'm behaving in front of them in particular or towards them. And I often do become impatient based on their childish behavior because they're children. And so my life has flourished because once you're able to control your anger, your stress, your impatience with a child, someone you love, you can start to do it anytime you want. And again, so then it flourishes because I start to build that muscle of patience and choice and self-awareness in any given moment, in any situation, where I have friends who might be angry and they're going to be angry for the next 3 days over something. And by being patient, I recognize not only is it being patient, but I'm sometimes patient with myself, right? So I can say it's okay that this is not going the way that I wanted to. And I can be patient, not necessarily with the situation, but with myself. Personally, I know that I am showing up to the best of my ability as often as possible. And when I know that, I can be patient with myself as well. And so my life flourished in so many different ways because it gives you an understanding of choice and who you want to be in any given moment.
Yeah, that's really cool. Ryan, my last question is one I ask every guest on the Eudaemonia podcast. Can you offer my listeners a morning reminder? This might be a simple ritual, a practice, a mantra, an affirmation, something that can help my listeners tap into a greater sense of patience in their daily lives.
Yeah, gratitude. So a practice that I brought up, and this just kind of happened gradually years ago, but when I wake in the morning, like when I literally am just becoming conscious that I'm in bed, I start creating gratitude for whatever I could, like literally right there, my pillows, my blankets, my wife, my bed, my bedroom. And I start expanding my home, my children, obviously, whoever's in the home, my refrigerator that's filled with food, my running water, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it, my car that's in the driveway. So as I start expanding out and I start realizing as I'm just becoming aware of what my day is going to bring, creating gratitude for the day and creating gratitude for my ability to experience that day. And when I literally start my day off that way, it's funny now, I've built it into such a habit that my subconscious does it automatically. Sometimes the reason I'm waking up and becoming conscious of that I'm in bed is because my brain is thinking of gratitude. I'm starting to think that I'm grateful for things. And when you start your day off in that way, you start to understand that everything and every single moment is a gift. You are more patient because there's not a reason to be stressed. There's not a reason to be overwhelmed. Don't get me wrong, I have stressful days. And as I mentioned, I have young children. I'm also very aware that every single moment is a gift. And the more I'm aware of that, the less impatient I have any need to be.
This conversation has been a gift, Ryan. If people want to find out more about you and the work that you do, where can they find out more?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to share that. So again, my name is Ryan Stanley. That's RyanStanley. And I say that because you can go to ryanstanley.com. A couple different things. So if you want to purchase my book, which is called Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, with a subtitle of A First Aid Kit for the Emotional Bumps, Scrapes, and Bruises of Life, you can buy that on my website. There's a button that says Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful. Feel free to click on that. If you do order a book from there, it'll come signed from me, and depending on my availability, it'll also come with a complimentary coaching session. But if you want to find it on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles, obviously everywhere where books are sold, you can find it there as well. But yeah, ryanstanley.com is probably the best place to go. If you're on social media, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, and all those buttons will be on my website as well.
That's awesome. And I would like my listeners to know that your book is a delightful little gem of a thing. It's not like a big novel that they're being asked to read. It really is a first aid kit that you have on your bedside table or take around in your handbag. And you can refer to in those moments when you're seeking a little bit more presence or patience or joy. Ryan Stanley, thank you so much for gifting your time here today. I know you're a busy dad and an amazing life coach. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time here today on the Eudaemonia podcast. It's been a joy.
Kim, really my pleasure, and it's a blessing as well. I don't want to say I've been giving it. I would say I've been sharing it. It's been amazing to share some time and space with you. So thank you so much for having me. I hope that we can do it again.
As Benjamin Franklin once said, he that can have patience can have what he will. You've been listening to the Eudaemonia podcast. If you'd like to learn more about how to live a truly flourishing life, please subscribe and check out eudaemoniapod.com for more inspiring episodes. I'm Kim Forrester. Until next time, be well, be kind to yourself, and be willing to let life come to you sometimes.